I'm Brian, and in this series I'll be covering many fun and useful command line utilities and applications to make your work more powerful and efficient. In the previous video, I demonstrated how to get into the command line quickly and easily on Windows, Mac, and Linux. In this video, I'll be showing you the same things in a more advanced way. Better ways to get to the command line in Windows, Mac, and Linux. There are still other ways of doing this, but these are the ways I use, and they're the ways I recommend. So once we get to a command line, then you'll be able to see that pretty much all these machines, Windows, Mac, Linux, all work the same way because they're all basically going to be running some version of Linux commands. Yes, even on the Mac, even on Windows. Stick with me, you'll see. Then from the next video, video 3, I'll show you how to use one trick to get to a command line from any system. Windows, Mac, Linux, iPad, Chromebook, Raspberry Pi, pretty much any system, whether it has a command line or a terminal built in or not. And that's a pretty good trick, but that'll be in the next video. After that, we'll get into the individual applications you can do from a command line and do all kinds of fun stuff after that. If you're as impatient as I am, and you don't like to wait for those other videos, you can jump ahead, pick up Going Text by me, Brian Shell, pretty much anywhere books are sold. Have fun with that. In the meantime, let's see how to do the advanced command line on the computer now. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is install a different terminal program. I showed you last time how to install the Easy Mac terminal. It wasn't really even installed, it's built in by default. This one we're going to download and install a much more powerful terminal application. Let's see. And I've closed out my browser already. It's called iTerm2. It's at iTerm2.com. Brings up a screen that looks like this. And you can read through the stuff if you want, but go to the downloads, and you probably want the stable release right here. It's called iTerm2. It's been the second version of iTerm for I don't know how long, about 3.2.6 versions. You can double click on it and it will run. It'll ask, do you want to move it to the applications folder? And that's usually a good idea. You usually want to keep your applications in the applications folder. And it'll copy it over, and there it is. We can do simple basic commands like that for now. And that's great. That's good. One more step, though, is when we get into running command line apps, we've got to be able to download and install them. And in Linux, usually, well, with Ubuntu, for example, you use something called sudo apt-get. Or sudo get, or there's a lot of different ways of doing it. The Mac uses something called Homebrew, but it's not built in, so we got to go download that as well. So we go back to our browser, type in Homebrew, give it a second, and the first thing comes up is brew.sh. That's the one we want. Click on that, and the very first page has a whole bunch of good stuff on it, but right up here at the top is Install Homebrew. All you have to do is highlight this line, copy it, paste it in right over here into the iTerm2 window. Cut and paste works just like you'd expect with any other app. And you can see it's user bin, Ruby, E, curl, and a bunch of stuff. Enter. And it's going to say it's going to install Brew and Homebrew and a bunch of little add-on things. This is all fine, do that. Press return to continue. It asks for the password for the Mac, so a lot of these things are going to require a password. Security, it's an important thing with Linux commands. And you get all kinds of stuff on the screen. You don't need to worry about all that unless you get error messages. You probably won't. And you can resize this as you go, and it looks kind of neat. But down here, it's going. It's 15%, 17%, 18%. It'll go pretty quickly, but not instantly, most likely. So we'll give that a minute. Oop, there it goes. Okay, now it's doing a bunch of stuff. Don't know what all that is. It's not done though, so we'll let it finish. Homebrew is run entirely by unpaid volunteers. You can donate to them. And if you like this whole thing, send them some money. Why not? They've got some really useful stuff, as you'll see. And we're done. Just to see if it worked, let's try installing something. First of all, I'll clear the screen so it's a little prettier. And that's how you do installations of things. Brew is the command, install is the thing we want to do, and I want to do a thing called neofetch, which just gives us a nice little readout. It's just a fun little test thing. And then it'll download some stuff, to download all the dependencies that's involved with it. You don't have to worry about any of that. Actually, that one line is all you have to type, and it'll go through all this stuff. Looks complicated, but you don't have to do anything. You just sit and wait for it. The developers have taken care of all the hard stuff for you. And it's done. Clears the screen, makes it look nice and pretty. And now we'll try the thing we just installed called neofetch. And boom, there it is. Got the little Apple logo that shows we're on an Apple. Gives you the name of the machine you're on, the operating system you're on, how long it's been running, and all kinds of other little information. And that's it. It's a what is this machine kind of test program. Doesn't do anything other than that. And that's all we're going to cover for the Mac in this episode. And anytime you want to exit out of the command line, you can just type exit or come up and exit the program the usual way. Okay, so now we'll try to do the same thing again running Linux. And as you can see here, I've got my Ubuntu Linux screen up. I've got the terminal window down here that we opened up last time. And over here, I've got a Google search for install Terminator on Ubuntu. As you can probably guess, we're going to install something called Terminator. It's an upgraded terminal program. And to get the instructions, I'm just going to click down here and go to their site. And there's some stuff here about the features of it. And right there is instructions on how to install Terminator. Now, Ubuntu uses something called repositories. It's where it goes out and it finds the software. And the one for Terminator isn't automatically installed. So what we're going to do is copy and paste this line into our terminal. And I'm using this all with a mouse just to make it simpler to look at. But you can use the keyboard, cut and paste, Control-C, Control-V if you want to. We'll talk about those another time, but it's fine with the mouse. Hit enter, and it's going to ask for the computer's password. And it should do something. Press enter to continue. And this shouldn't take very long. All it's doing is changing some libraries, some search sites in the computer. Okay. Copy. Update your sources. And this should install it. There's some additional dependencies and extra stuff that's got to be added before Terminator will work. We're not too worried about that. We're just going to do it. So I'm going to click Y for yes to continue. And it'll go from there. And again, with these terminals, you can make them wider if they don't cover everything. Looks a little more attractive that way. We're done with our instructions, so I'm going to close out that Firefox window. Normally installing software doesn't take this long, but because it had all those packages that were dependencies, things that are required before Terminator works, it has to install all that stuff first. Okay, and it looks like it's done. So I'm going to exit out of the Ubuntu terminal. Look at our other apps. And here it is. It's called Terminator. I'll click on that. And there you have it. It's another terminal window. It looks just like the other one. It's got your black screen, green text, and some stuff on it. But if you right-click, you have some other options that we'll talk about another time. But you can split the screen vertically, you can split the screen horizontally, and have two different things on top of each other or next to each other, or all kinds of complicated little configurations. There are preferences, which I will get into right now. I'm not going to get into all of these. But if you go to Profiles, under the default profile, and if you want to have, I like it to have a little bit larger print. So I will click on this, and I will choose 14-point font. And it's not letting me select that right now. Oh, because I didn't tell it what kind of font. Okay. 14-point. Select. And this will save it as a default. Close. And now you can see, oh, that's kind of ugly. Let's choose a different font to make that look a little nicer. That's pretty disgusting. Okay. Sans regular? No. We want, I don't know what we have choices of. Well, I know. I've got one installed that I like. Deja Vu. That one right there. And I'll go with that. And that. And that looks better. And just like before, you can do whatever you want to do with it. You see it's a little more colorful. The fonts look nicer. And of course, you can do those different splits, which makes it look even better. And we'll do more with this at another time. But again, to make it go away, exit, and that's it for Linux. Oh, one more thing. Once we get Terminator installed, we have to be able to install something to make sure it actually works. So, go down here to Show Applications. It's not on the first screen here. It's right here on the second screen. Or, like before, we could type something in up at the top, term. Now that's going to bring up terminal and Terminator. They both start out with TERM. So we'll put in a little extra. But either way, it narrows it down. I want Terminator, so there's Terminator. Take a second to start. And there it goes. Okay, now to install something on Linux, you use a command called apt-get, or that's one way to do it. And you have to do this as the root user. So you type in sudo apt-get sudo apt-get install, and then the name of the thing you want to install. In this case, just like on Mac, we're going to install NeoFetch. And we'll talk more about this in the third or fourth video, but this is how we're going to do this one. And then it's going to want the password. And it's going to go out, look up the app, get some information on it, download its various dependencies, the thing that are required in order to make it work. And it's doing that now. And it's done. So just like with the Mac, we will type NeoFetch. And it does the same thing as the Mac did. On the Mac, we had the Apple logo here, and now we've got the Ubuntu logo. But you can see that we're running Ubuntu 18.10. We're running it on VirtualBox. Makes it easier to record that way. And it's got a few things installed, but there you go. It worked. And that's all there is to Terminator on Linux. Okay, so now we move on to Windows. Like I said last time, what we looked at in the first video, even though they were technically command lines, they were not Linux command lines. You could run Linux type applications from those. So what we're going to do now is set up Windows so it will allow you to run Linux inside of Windows. This uses something called the Linux Subsystem for Windows. And here's how you get that going. And you see I got Windows set up here. I'm going to go down here to the Edge browser. We will Google Linux Subsystem for Windows. And there it comes up first thing. Now you notice here it says on Windows 10. This does require Windows 10, so if you've got an older version of Windows, that's not going to work. But for Windows 10, here you go. We've just found the instructions. Basically, first thing we want to do is type this command right here into the Windows PowerShell, which they make a nice little convenient button here that copies it to the clipboard. And down here we're going to start PowerShell just like we did last time. And we type that in, or cut and paste, it's a whole lot easier. Hit enter. Error message. The instructions here say, install it as administrator. So we didn't do that. We need to go back and do that the right way. So I close this out. Click on Start. Find PowerShell again, just like before. This time, though, instead of clicking on it, I right-click on it. And right here's a little option, Run as Administrator. Yes to that. And now we're going to run it just like we did before, but this time it'll work. It only takes a minute or so. And there it is. Restart your computer when prompted. So at this point I have to restart the computer, and when I do, I can go back and install the rest of it. And we'll come back when the computer reboots. Okay, so after you let the machine reboot, you come back up to Windows, and now to finish things up, you don't go to the web browser and download anything, you go to the Microsoft App Store. Yes, it's one of the times you actually are going to use the App Store. Click on Search, type in Linux, try to spell it right, and, well, you got this one up here. Let's do that one. I was going to go down below, but these are here. Okay, and we have several different choices of types or flavors of Linux. You've got Debian and SUSE and OpenSUSE and Ubuntu. And like I said with my other examples last week, I use Ubuntu, so I'm going to use it here too. I've already downloaded this at one point or another on a different machine, but I'm going to install. Pending, getting licensed, downloading. So this will take a few minutes to download, and I'll get back with you when it's finished downloading. Okay, it's finished downloading. It says it's installed, and we can now launch it. Kill off the store up here. Installing, this may take a few minutes, okay? Okay, it's finished. Please create a default Unix user account. Does not need to match your Windows username. Okay. Make a username, can be anything, and a password. And boom, it's there. Okay, so allegedly, this is a Unix or an Ubuntu Linux installation. So to do the neo fetch from the other apps, you do this: sudo apt-get install neo fetch. It's a brand new installation. It doesn't know where to look. The sudo apt-get update will update the various libraries and places that it looks for things. Now try the sudo apt-get install neofetch. And it's going to go out and it's finding it, it's downloading it, it's going to install it. And it's done. So, just like we did with the others, now we can type neofetch, and there it is. Now, obviously we're running this in Windows, but you can see here that inside Windows we are running Ubuntu 18.04.1. It knows there's Windows in there somewhere. It's only been up for a minute, and it's got some other information going on here. And that's it for now. To get out of this, shut down -hang now. Okay, we don't need that. Exit. Exit works. And that's it for Windows. Okay, and that's it for this video. Today we've covered how to do the advanced terminal install on Mac with iTerm2, Terminator on Linux, and the Windows Subsystem for Linux on Windows. So between last week's simple terminal applications and this week's more advanced ones, you have a handful of different ways of doing the terminal at this point. Next week, next video, we'll cover a unique way that you can get into a terminal from pretty much anywhere. Windows, Mac, Linux, Chromebook, iPad, your phone, just about anything that can get on the internet. See you then. Oh, and don't forget, if you can't wait, Going Text by me. See you next time.